At the end of last year, Bestarc sent me a plasma cutter. I took it over to my pop's house, and he's been dealing a welder and metal fabricator for 50 to 60 years, and he was impressed with the little machine. So they offered to send me a welder. Well, I figured let's give it a shot. So let me bring the camera in and see what we get, and then we'll see how well this thing works. So this is a MIG, TIG, and stick welder. However, I think most people are probably going to just use it as a MIG welder. You're going to have your ground clamp. It's got a pretty good ground clamp here, copper wire connecting the front or the top and the bottom, so that either one of them is making connection. It'll connect into your lug there. Pretty good spring, so yeah, that feels like that's going to work pretty good. It comes with a stick. You know, there are applications where people still use stick welding, but for me, I don't professionally weld every day. If so, I would probably use one of the big machines, but for every day out here in the shop or building tables, I'm going to use a MIG. With this little machine, we can use flux core wire. Now they give us a little, I don't know, it feels like maybe a 1 pound box of just a steel wire, which you have to have gas to run, and a flux core wire. Typically, the flux core wire is easier for a new beginner to weld with, but it does leave a more splatter around your welds. It's a little bit messier and doesn't look quite as neat, and maybe have to clean up a little bit more of the weld afterwards. But as far as just needing to get a good weld in, you know, the flux core wire will work great. Just like our little plasma cutter, the machine automatically will switch from 110 to 220. All you do is just plug the 110 into the one side and then stick that into the 220 plug, and the machine is converted to 220. You have your hose to connect for your gas in. This can be connected for the CO2. Typically with the TIG, you're going to use argon, and that's going to be hooked into your whip. And one of the amazing things, which the plasma cutter from Bestarc that we reviewed was just, I mean, ridiculously small and lightweight, but yet it performed fantastic. So this little thing, I mean, I have had lunch boxes back in the day that I carried to work that were heavier than this welding machine. Now, it only has about a 4-foot power cord. So, and then the whip here is only about 5 foot long. So you do have to have the machine close to your work. However, that's one of the things that one of the big pros about a flux core is that they're very easy. They can weld dirty metal. So if you're actually working on an old 4-wheel drive or a piece of equipment, you know, you can take this out with you to, you know, the job site and carry it out. So what I'm going to do is, on our testing today, I've got a 100-foot extension cord. Now it is a 12-gauge extension cord, but I'm going to test this, even though I'm not, you know, 100 foot away. I could actually plug this into the wall, but we're going to test this in a real life situation. So we're going to be running it, or we'll start off and see if it will work on a 100-foot extension cord. All right, let's turn this thing on for the first time, see if it blows up. All right, we got some lights flashing, and we've got everything on the front here is push button. So you've got the T2 or 2T and 4T. That's the same as with the plasma. And what that means is you push the button, and either with the T2, when you push it, it comes on, or when you have it on the 4T, you push it, it turns it on, you push it again to turn it off. So here we go either gas or gasless. we're going flux core, so we're going to be gasless. And then we have our button down here that we can put in what size wire. So we're going to be running a 0.30 wire. And then this is either MIG, TIG, or stick. So we are going to be running with the MIG. So then right here, you have one knob that's actually rotates to bring up your amps. You don't really have a way to adjust your speed. So this is supposed to be, with the new technology, that it can detect how much draw is being put out. And so based on how many amps you have it set on, it's going to feed the wire at the proper speed. So this is the spool of wire that came with the machine. I'm going to go ahead, cut that there, get that little kink from the beginning off. We're going to pull our little spool here. And now you want to make sure that you don't allow that to, okay, fan come off. All right, that's good. I thought the fan ran constantly, but much better. So what I was saying was, you want to make sure that you don't allow the wire to wrap underneath itself and get tied up. And, all right, we'll do it that way. So we got it into the sleeve, push that down, lock it on. All right, for my first attempt, I just cut a little groove in this piece of angle iron here, and I'm gonna just see if I can run a bead down and just try to get my settings. I've got it on 90 amps, and I haven't yet struck an arc for the first time with this machine, so we will see what it'll do. I may have to check the settings after I give this a check. And that's getting hot. Let me turn that down a little bit. All right, so I had started on the top, and then right here's where I stopped, and you can see how once it started going, the metal heated up and it's kind of sunken in there, and that's where it was so hot that it was starting to collapse in. And then I took it down to 70, and then this is where I finished up, and it was actually getting down pretty hot there, and you can see how it had puddled and just slagged through. So I still was too hot. I was actually expecting to have to turn this up, being such a small machine, because in my experience and some of my other machines I've had, that you had a hard time getting enough juice to actually burn through a thicker piece of metal. Now this is about 1/8 of an inch thick, but this thing is actually welding fantastic. So I am going to crank the power down a little bit. You know what, I've got a hole right here that's drilled in there, and that's something I've had to do before, is fill in a hole. All right, so that worked actually pretty good there. I was at 60 amps. I probably could have dropped that back just a hair to about 50, 55. So we've got a nice smooth all the way through. If I ground that down flat, you could probably not even tell that there was a hole right there. So that's working fantastic. Okay, so back in my younger days, I had welded deer stands for a while, and we used this electrical EMT to build a lot of the structure out of. So I've got this cranked down as low as it'll go, and let's see if we can actually weld some of this EMT together. All right, so that may not be the prettiest, but it's been a while since I've done this. But that is solid all the way around. There's no holes. And, you know, being that this is just some thin wall EMT, I think that's pretty good. So this thing definitely seems to burn very well. All right, so we just got this piece of angle iron. And let's see how well that just can actually weld it back together. All right, so for somebody who's not a welder, I'm more of a woodworker. I think that's some pretty decent little beads there. You see, because it's the Flux core, you're getting that little extra splatter. And that was where I was doing the vertical, you know, running up. This was the horizontal. But that horizontal there is a little crooked, but that's just me. But it was able to penetrate good and would definitely hold anything that I would need. So this little welder, just like their plasma machine, I see why their plasma machine is the #1 bestseller on Amazon. I don't know what breed of chipmunks they got they're putting in these machines, but I mean, this thing is just ridiculously light. I'm running it on a 100-foot extension cord. You know, this thing is just like a portable. Climb up in the, you know, truck and get underneath there and weld something. You no longer have to have a $2,000 machine, you know, with the whip that costs you more than what this whole welder does, that can reach out there, because, you know, you had to leave the machine, you know, back over in the shop, and you needed a 50-foot whip to be able to reach to where you're working at. The little machine is absolutely fantastic. You just put your amps and the speed control on the wire. Surprised me at how well that's working. So if you're an inexperienced welder just starting out, I mean, this thing is bulletproof. Basically, if your weld is sticking up too high, it's not melting your metal good, you turn the amps up. If it's burning through holes, or if it's starting to sag down where it's getting the metal too hot, turn the amps down, and, you know, you should be good to go. So very simple machine. And then even if you're experienced and you just don't want to be carrying around those big heavy whips, literally the machines that we used to use, the whips on them weighed more than this whole machine does. So I don't know how it is that they're getting so much power out of these little boxes, but you know, it's absolutely working fantastic. The only thing I wish that they had was, I wish they had the gasless cone, you know, for the nozzle. This is a gas nozzle or gas cone. The gasless ones are smaller and they kind of hold back, because this is made for when your gas comes out around here, it kind of creates a bubble around your tip. Well, with the gasless ones, that puts that little tip out there, and that way you can really get back into those little corners. Definitely, I'm gonna put a link down in the description for the machine, and if you want to take a look at it, I'm sure you'll be happy with it. you know, it's not like this is the only thing they make. You know, they're making the #1 best-selling plasma cutter on Amazon. And I will try to see, I'm gonna buy some gasless tips. I looked on Bestarc and I did not see where they sold a gasless nozzle. So I'm gonna purchase, actually I've already purchased and I'm waiting for delivery. And if I get one that works with this machine, I will put a link to it down in the description also. And that way, you know, you'll know that that one actually will work with this machine.